Hi, this is video 8 in the diabetes course for comfort eaters. This video is called the diabetes drip, and this is one of the most important conceptual concepts that it really helps to get your head around. Now, this picture here, which is quite shocking, it really is meant to demonstrate what the problem is. This is the easiest way to understand type 2 diabetes. When you see the tasty food inside that drip, that is exactly what's happening. When we're eating our very highly processed carbohydrates, they're called rapidly digestible carbohydrates, RDCs. This is the stuff that's really causing us to get type 2 diabetes, because it's going straight into our bloodstream. It's almost pre-digested. So what we want to talk about is how our metabolism, which is really a reflection of how much energy we eat, how much energy we have, what we can do in the day. This concept of the food to energy cycle, I want to just make very clear. This is kind of conceptual. It's highly simplified. Many parts are missing. If you learn about how your body works, it is incredible, the different ways that the proteins are processed and fats. There's so many amazing things that our bodies do. But this is just thinking about it from a kind of conceptual way and thinking about glucose storage and burning. And it's making very broad assumptions. So it's not science. It's a kind of common sense way to think about all these complicated things. And it's all about this fact that you get hungry, your body needs some energy. You digest that energy, it starts breaking down the energy is dripped into our bloodstream, your body uses the energy, and then by the time it's used it all, then it's hungry again. So that's what I'm kind of talking about. Now, it's really interesting that our body's a bit like a kind of Amazon Prime with our digestion system and putting this energy where the body needs it at any one time. When we eat food, when we sit down for a meal, it's a bit like a big bulk delivery. Inside there are fats, proteins, carbohydrates. Each one of those has certain properties. I'm not talking anything to do with the rebuilding the muscles or all the vitamins, the micronutrients and things like that. All we're talking about now really is the carbohydrates. But that stomach is an amazing place where it breaks down food. Different food takes different amounts of time to break down. There's a little graph just there, I don't know if you can see that, but that shows the speed of breaking down of the energy. So the carbohydrates are first, then you've got the proteins, and then the fats that take longer. And so that in the stomach we kind of unpackage all that food, and the food is packaged up in how difficult it is to digest. So for example, if you eat a piece of broccoli, that's going to digest differently to a Mars bar, for example. And at the end of your digestion system, what happens is your body then injects that energy, that glucose, into your body. Again, there's lots of other things happening. I'm just ignoring those, but this is the kind of the pathway to our problems. So one thing you really need to start getting your head around is understanding what food your body needs at different times. And it's really important to understand that, so that it's not so that you have to act perfectly all the time. It's so that if you do fuel your body with the food that is really high energy at a time when you're just going to, for example, if you're late at night you have lots of high energy, then just a mental note then of in the morning, if you can, avoid having your breakfast, because you've probably had too many calories the night before. Here I'm kind of trying to show the difference between the different types of energy from, say, broccoli or a Mars bar. Now, broccoli is very bulky, takes a long time to eat. If you think about eating that whole head of broccoli, I mean, it would be a mammoth task, and inside your stomach it would take quite a long time to break down because of the water content and the fibre. And the fibre is like kind of wrapping a present, so every bit of energy has been wrapped and your stomach has to unwrap it. Now, a Mars bar is the opposite. It's like rocket fuel. It's literally like pouring energy straight into your bloodstream. It kind of goes straight through your digestion. So one of the things I like to kind of visualize is this kind of the stomach as a place where it takes time for things to happen. And here we've got some examples of some foods. Again, they're not really kind of broken down properly, but you know, the carbohydrates can be broken down in anything from up to about 15 minutes. The proteins can take anything up to an hour, and fats can take up to 3 hours to start to break down. Now they don't all turn into energy, but those are the kind of timescales we're looking at. And you know, in the olden days when we had kind of meat and 2 veg, we had whole foods, you know, you had you didn't have many of the very rapidly digestible carbohydrates, and our digestion system worked really well. The problem is that nowadays what we're doing, because we're eating all this ultra processed food and very carbohydrate rich food, what it's doing is it's shortcutting this slowing down process, and it's dropping all of that energy into our bloodstream very quickly. And when it drops it into the bloodstream quickly, that's when things that aren't necessarily great happen long term, and this is where you get insulin resistance, and then you can start to have, you know, really real problems long term. The way to think of your bloodstream is like a kind of highway. It goes through the whole of your body, so this is why it's so important that we focus on these rapidly digestible carbohydrates, because they're the mechanism that's kind of breaking our digestion, bypassing that digestion. And it's because the food is made up differently, and we've talked about this a little bit before, but on the right hand side you've got the tasty lovely food that I love eating. It's ultra processed and it's been turned into rocket fuel, and it's not that we need to avoid it, it's not that we need to give up all of this rocket fuel now. What we need to do is go back to having a bit of a better balance, so just pushing ourselves a bit to the left on this graph. And one of the key points about this kind of the diabetes drip that I want to talk to you about is that when we eat food, we have our digestion system, which again, normally in the olden days we had a kind of drip feed of energy into our body, but there's actually one crucial piece, which is your liver. Now your liver can store about 500 calories of glucose. The problem is that when we eat too many rapidly digestible carbohydrates, if we fill that liver up with glucose, then what happens is that spare sugar has to go somewhere, because our blood can only hold about a teaspoon of sugar at any one time, or glucose. And so when that happens, it turns it into fat storage. So you need to think of the diabetes drip as kind of like let's not fill this up too much. And one way to kind of think of it is, when we're eating, and obviously you've got, like, some of the times going to be more logical, some of them not, but when you're eating just right, you're kind of eating a little bit less the processed carbs, so that you're never getting to the point where you're filling that cup up, filling up your drip. You want to be making sure that you're having enough that you don't feel like you're restricting yourself, but not too much that it's overflowing regularly and turning into fat. That's what was happening before I started thinking more about my health and happiness balance. Each month I was just putting on a bit of weight because this situation was happening probably almost daily. So to sum up, our stomachs, the digestion, it's amazing the way it kind of slows down the blood sugar spikes. Now sadly, the rapidly digestible carbohydrates, they bypass that mechanism, and that's what causes our insulin muscle, as I call it, to tire. And type 2 diabetes is about having a tired muscle, and that's why we can reverse it, because we can start to eat differently and let it rest more, which is the fasting period. Learning to look at a food and understand, you can look on the nutrition label and just know whether it's got, for example, very highly processed wheat in it, how much of a rocket fuel it has. That really helps you make adjustments to the bits of the food that you put on your plate. Again, it's not about removing them, it's about saying I want a little bit less of that, and that gives you this intuitive ability to unlock your success. And the amazing thing is not the fact that you've lost weight superficially. It's not the fact that it's not just the fact that you're improving your health. The real importance is the fact that your self-confidence goes through the roof, and it makes you so much happier. Okay, the next video is going to be video 9, and that's going to be about the next 3 weeks. So thanks for listening, and see you then.